Almighty God, we pray for your blessing upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established among us all. Amen. Manningham Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of lands and waterways now known as Manningham. Council pays respect to elders past, present and emerging, and values the ongoing contribution to enrich and appreciate the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council acknowledges Australia's First Peoples as traditional owners of lands and waterways across country and encourages reconciliation between all. Manningham Council also values the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I welcome all members of the public who have joined us in person or online to observe tonight's proceedings. Tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor to the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event that your voice and/or image is used, broadcast by Council. Council meetings are conducted in accordance with our governance rules. I will introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda, calling it by number and reading the title. I will then call for a mover and seconder of a motion on the item before opening the debate. Only councillors are able to join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in a report or propose amendments and supplementary motions. I'd like to draw your attention to item 7 on tonight's agenda, public question time, which provides people with an opportunity to ask questions of the council. Council's allocated 30 minutes for question time at tonight's meeting, and the process for public question time is set out in our governance rules. Questions must be received prior to the start of the meeting to be asked. Where we receive advance notice of a question in accordance with our governance rules by 5 p.m. yesterday, we will provide a verbal response to the question at our meeting. Questions we receive today up to 7 p.m. may be taken on notice if we don't have the information on hand to provide a meaningful response. If this happens, you'll be provided with a written response to your question within 10 working days. I will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. You will be asked to come forward to the lectern to ask your question, where you will have the opportunity to provide a 2-minute introductory statement before asking your question. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to Council through the normal channels. To ensure the efficient conduct of our meeting and maximum participation during question time, all questions and answers shall be as brief as possible and no discussion is permitted on any question. Councillors and the gallery are reminded that question time is to be conducted in a respectful manner and any disorderly conduct will be managed in accordance with our governance rules. Item number 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. I will confirm Councillor Laura Mayne is attending virtually. Hello, Laura. Councillor Mayne, can you please confirm you can see and hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. There are no apologies this evening. Councillors, are there any requests for leave of absence? No, thank you. Item number 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. No prior notifications of conflict of interest have been received. Would anyone like to give a notice of conflict of interest? None noted. Item number 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
I move that the minutes of the council meeting held on 30th of May 2023 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5, presentations. I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of the Hunter Valley bus crash. On behalf of Council, I would like to express our deepest condolences to the families and friends affected by the horrific bus collision in the Hunter Valley on Sunday, the 12th of June. Many people from our beautiful town of Warrandyte were impacted. We especially extend our sympathies to the family of Darcy Bullman and to the bride and groom, Mitchell Gaffney and Maddie Edsel. Our thoughts and support are also going out to the Warrandyte Cricket Club, the other clubs within Warrandyte and the broader Warrandyte community. Councillors, can I please ask us to stand for 1 minute silence? Thank you, councillors and everyone. I would also like to acknowledge and congratulate Manningham residents who have received a Medal of the Order of Australia in the King's Birthday 2023 honour list. I would like to start with our very own Councillor Michelle Kleinert. Congratulations, Councillor Kleinert. Councillor Michelle Kleinert was acknowledged for her service to local government and the Melbourne community. She's been a Manningham councillor since 2012, serving as mayor in 2016-17 and again in 21-22. Councillor Kleinert has also served as president and is currently the executive officer of the Australian Local Government Women's Association, Victorian branch. Councillor Kleinert is passionate about advocating on the issues of mental health and has been an ambassador of the Mental Health Foundation Australia since 2020. We are very proud of this acknowledgement and it is very well deserved. Congratulations, Councillor Kleinert. I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Andrew Barling from Don Vale, who was recognised for his service to community health. Congratulations to Dr. Barling. Item number 6, petitions. There are no petitions. Item number 7, public question time. So we have received a few questions for tonight's council meeting. As I said at the beginning, anyone submitting a question to council will have the opportunity to read out their question, or you can choose to have your question read out by our CEO. So our first question is from John Ives. John, would you like to come to the lectern to read your question?
Please forgive me. Barely can hear you here, but did you ask me to go to the lectern?
Yes, yes. So, John, you will have 2 minutes to make an introductory statement and then 2 minutes to ask your questions.
Okay. I've got 2 questions. The first question, question 1, how many residential swimming pools are there in Manningham Council? I have been to the front desk to ask that question. I was told there's information not available to me. I went home, got on the computer, went on to chat, spoke to a young lady called Hayley. I didn't get an immediate answer, but when I phoned back and gave her a cross-reference number to the conversation I'd earlier had, she again confirmed information not available. End of question. Does anybody have an answer, please?
If you ask your second question, we'll answer both of them at the same time.
That's the first question. We're now on to question number 2. It's a little bit more of a discussion than a question, but it's still a question. Productivity and cost of lodging certificate of pool and spa barrier. 2, compliance certificate for myself in this high cost of living environment. And my question is, could it have cost less? The minimal cost, assuming I don't go ahead and do the right thing, is a registration with the council of $80.80, which is on top of the registration I did originally pay many years ago when I put the pool in. The council approved it, they ensured I had safety barriers, and the windows were adjusted, the sliding doors were adjusted, so on and so forth. So it's an additional cost. The lodgement certificate, $20.90, has in fact been put in by me because I have done what I needed to do. But had I not done that, there's actually a fine, $383.70. And in my mind, I can't help asking myself, why a fine at this point in time? And those details come from page 91 of your 23-24 budget. So if you actually take those three costs, the registration, the certificate, and let's just say the fine at this stage, and add them up, they come to $495.40, which is multiplied by the number of pools we have in Manningham, 26,752, multiplied by the $495.40, and would you believe it comes to, perhaps you want to get your calculators out, $13,257,948.80. A nasty surprise for your community. The second part of this is, let's assume I do the right thing, which incidentally I have. The registration of the pool actioned and installed. Council required new registration of $80.80, same as before. Lodgement of compliance certificate, $20.90, which I've done. And of course, just remember, you just have to put this information on the computer. It's easy. I mean, why would we have to pay that kind of money just to get this? Oh, I've got one of these. That's very good. You need one of those. Then I had to get a private Victorian Building Authority inspector in. Now, I don't know whether you're aware of it. I think you are to some extent, but they're as scarce as hen's teeth when everybody in the council and other councils are all trying to get them at the same time. And the minimum cost to me, and I've checked with my neighbours, is roughly $500. It usually goes about $350 for your first visit, $150 to issue your certificate when it's been finished. In my case, it didn't cost me a great deal, but my neighbour had to put a whole new fence in, so it's been quite a heavy burden on your residents. Plus cost of rectification repairs and part fitting, many hundreds of dollars. Does the council look at ways of introducing productivity arrangements when burdening its residents? You, our employer, I'm the employer, we pay our rates with a view to having you all, not meant in the wrong way, do your best to make our lives as simple as possible and as happy as possible. It just seems that this activity of the council, on behalf of the state government, I realise that, really came back to horrific costs. Now, the estimate of the number of pools in the society is, I'm about to stop, it was my estimate, because you wouldn't give me a figure. End of question 2.
Thank you, John. I will ask our Director of City Planning, Duncan Turner, to provide a response.
Okay, can I go and sit down? Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr Ives, for your question. Manningham currently has 7,689 known swimming pools and spas. Approximately 94% of those are registered. The new pool and spa regulations were introduced on the 1st of December 2019 by the state government to improve pool and spa safety to address the tragic number of drownings in residential swimming pools. There was 27 fatal drownings of young children in Victoria between January 2000 and May 2019. Whilst Council is sympathetic and understands the financial impact of the new swimming pool requirements on some Manningham residents, it is important from a safety and liability perspective that property owners comply with the new laws and ensure their pools and spas are safe. The new regulations require pool spas to be registered with Council by the 1st of November 2020, and as you've referenced, there's a $80 registration fee, and to then subsequently lodge a compliance certificate to Council by the designated due date in the order of $21. These fees, again, were legislated by the state government and assist Council in resourcing the mandatory compliance and enforcement program. Due to the large number of pools and spas within Victoria, the legislation allows the required pool inspections to be undertaken by private building inspection companies, and this allows local government to focus on compliance and enforcement responsibilities. The private sector inspection and report fees are market-driven and do vary between private inspection companies.
Thank you, Duncan. Our next question is from Gary Siganek. Gary, would you like to come to the lectern? Again, you have 2 minutes to make an introductory statement before asking your questions.
Okay, thank you, Council. The Council has made it clear in the Warrandyte Diary, and I quote, "It was clear we could not deliver the full project without compromising, and we believe we made the right decision. Without compromising is the truth. You never wanted to compromise on a park, even if it turned us into Ackland Street and destroyed businesses and made Macedon Road a nightmare for pedestrians and motorists. So when the Council wasted everyone's time and the community's money improvising a process to favour Council, even though we were assured by Council that if the traders only wanted new footpaths, basic amenity and safety improvements, the Council would be fine with that. Not correct by your own words. It also states we look forward to working with the community in these safety and amenity upgrades. The Council's idea of that is coming up with something and telling us what's going to happen. This is our workplace. I call on you to invite a group of traders in for a constructive meeting with officers. What's really going on here is to wait till after the Council elections. You'll come up with another improvised process to get your park, then we believe a restaurant. Otherwise, why do you want to take the sale down and to build a park 4 to 5 times bigger than Templestowe Village and Tunstall Square? Result will be it will make our Macedon Road more dangerous. That's an undeniable fact. A road engineer who has done work for you and attend one of the public meetings told me to bring a road down to the minimum is fine when it's low volume, but Macedon Road is very high volume, and to minimise it will make it dangerous. And we will fight to keep the community safe, and you know the community doesn't support changing the road, and they support us by 95%. We need to get to the point where we all shake hands and move on. No narrowing of Macedon Road. Keep Macedon Square safe. This is our slogan. Thank you very much. Question 1. Does the Council prioritise safety and functionality always? Question 2 is, if the Council's priority is safety, then why is the Council opting for a band-aid solution in regards to the footpaths, which are in such poor condition, especially the bricks, and constant maintenance over the years has not made them safe? This has only costed the community with compromised safety and unnecessary expense over the years. Isn't the contradiction obvious? Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I'll ask Rochelle Quattrocchi, the Director of City Services, to provide a response to your 2 questions.
Thank you, Mayor Diamonte, and thank you for your question, Gary. We do take safety and functionality very seriously, and in fact improving and maintaining the safety and amenity of our shopping centres is a priority for us. Our council plan demonstrates our commitment to enhancing our activity centres and supporting traders to ensure thriving local businesses as well as community accessibility and safety. So I answered question 1. Question 2, we will be implementing a program of minor amenity and safety works at Macedon Square. These will be occurring in the financial year of 2023-24. This will include maintenance work that we do carry out across other precincts across Manningham to make sure that the areas are safe, accessible and amenable destination for all users. The works will include safety measures such as bollards works, which actually commence next week, to be followed by maintenance works, which will include paving works. We'll also look to improve amenity within the centre as well. There will be no change to the footprint of the road or footpath at Macedon Square. Any works will be done within the existing footprint. We are currently working through the full staging of the program with more announcements about when those works to occur. But more recently, as mentioned, works are starting next week with the bollards. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you for your questions. I'm now going to move to item number 8, admission of urgent business, and there are no items of urgent business. Item number 9, planning permit applications. There are no planning permit applications that require a decision of council this month. Item number 10, city planning. 10.1, integrated water management and flood mapping update. Do I have a mover?
Mayor, I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goff. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an update report on two very important projects which Council is working on, which is our integrated water management strategy and our flood mapping strategy. So we previously dealt with them separately, and we've decided to put them together into the overall multi-year project. And if you read the report, there's a good update on the timetable, consultants appointed, and the various goals and strategies. The other thing this report is doing is actually adding my colleague Councillor Carly Lang to the community reference panel. We've got a community reference panel with 9 members of the public who were meeting quarterly to advise and guide the council as we work up this very important long-term project. And Councillor Lang's ward in Yarra has obviously got lots of drainage issues, and I think it's an excellent appointment to add Councillor Lang to the reference panel and have her as the chair, joining Councillor Goff and myself on that important community advisory panel.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Nothing more to add.
Thank you.
Nothing more to add.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank my colleagues, Councillor Stephen Mayne and Councillor Jeff Goff, for having me come along on the Integrated Water Management and Flood Mapping Community Reference Panel. I really look forward to meeting and introducing myself to the committee and working together for our integrated water management targets. I understand that our integrated water management strategy fits in with our Plan Melbourne strategy for 2017 to 2050 and really aims to make Melbourne a sustainable and resilient city. I'm really thrilled to be able to understand and work with the committee on a holistic approach for sustainability and resilience for our Manningham City, with a clear focus on environmental sustainability, to address the impacts of urbanisation on our water cycle, and to be prepared for our increased demand on water with a rising population. I'm aware that Manningham City infrastructure team will lead the development of our flood stormwater management strategy that will happen in parallel with our flood mapping, so all 3 things happening at once, or to prioritise our capital works program for the future years, and to ensure that flood risk is addressed and mitigated to keep our community safe, their properties and infrastructure. Enabling Manningham to thrive and achieve a safe, resilient and livable, sustainable city. And I really look forward to meeting the panel members soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And welcome to the reference panel, Councillor Lang. Item number 10.2, draft affordable housing policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Laura Main.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Councillor Laura Main, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm so excited to be moving our draft affordable housing policy. This is a great piece of work and has been thoroughly considered by this council group. Affordable housing in this context is related to subsidised housing, not the general affordability of housing in Manningham. That's an important distinction. The policy generally covers 4 main areas: advocacy, land use planning, relationship building and investment. In terms of advocacy, Manningham is part of the Affordable Housing Alliance, the Eastern Affordable Housing Alliance, or EHA as they're known as, which I'm a representative on. They do great work with robust strategic planning and policy framework. Recently, there's been a focus on pushing out the research regarding women over 55, who tragically are the fastest growing cohort of homelessness. It's very eye-opening research. Land use planning, sorry, I'm having a bit of a coughing fit. Land use planning relates to our negotiations with developers to get affordable housing in Manningham. We only really have the ability to negotiate as the state government has not made the inclusion of affordable housing mandatory, unfortunately. In this process, we have a more targeted approach than our previous policies. Relationship building in this policy refers to working closely with key stakeholders, including the state government, not-for-profit groups, and aligned social service providers, whilst investment refers to the possibility of affordable housing on council-owned sites if the criteria is met. Overall, I'd just like to thank the officers for their great work on this piece of policy, especially Frank and Lydia, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the great affordable housing that this will hopefully provide in Manningham in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Main. Councillor Thomas Lightbody, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. Currently across Victoria and Australia, housing is ever more unaffordable for many people, including young people and families, but also acknowledging that senior women are the fastest growing cohort of homeless people within Melbourne. In Manningham, only 1.7% of newly listed rental properties are affordable to people on low incomes, and as a council, it's our responsibility to look after our residents and our communities. It's essential that we try and do as much as we can to increase affordable housing within our city, and this plan outlines how we intend to do that. This plan puts out a policy that will position us to negotiate with planning applicants for a proportion of their developments to be set aside for affordable housing, and indicates what percentages we're aiming for. Unfortunately, what this policy can't do is make that a requirement. And that's because the state government has forbidden us from including formal requirements in our planning schemes, instead only allowing us to make negotiations, which have thus far achieved limited results in Manningham and the rest of Victoria. But in contrast, many other nations, they're very successful, including the United Kingdom, where affordable housing quotas are normal and widely used across the country. I would like to thank the officers for their work on this, and I really look forward to Council's ongoing negotiations with planning applicants to try and achieve the best outcome that we can for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lightbody. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Councillor Stephen May.
Thank you, Mayor. So I support this report as well, which I think is excellent. And it is quite striking, the challenges that we have in Manningham in particular. So only 0.6% of our housing stock is officially affordable or available through affordable housing providers versus 2.3% across metropolitan Melbourne. And if you look at the stats, there's 9,000 rented households in Manningham, and 35% of them, or 3,171, are formally in housing stress under the definitions. And 1,100 people accessed homelessness services in Manningham in 2021. So with the world's most expensive housing, it is a difficult area, and it does fall between the cracks sometime as to which level of government is dealing with this. The earlier speakers are right that the state government is the most powerful player with their control over the planning scheme. Planning and Environment Act declares that it's voluntary, and we can only do so much in a voluntary environment. So at Tullamore with Bert Mervac, I think we got a couple of affordable housing units managed by our local provider, Mitch. Obviously, we've had this debate federally where the Greens and Labor are fighting about the HAF scheme. It's good that federal Labor's offered the states another $2 billion, and the states are probably the pivotal player in terms of actually building stock. And we've got Homes Victoria rolling out a multi-billion-dollar scheme, although there's not a lot of activity in Manningham. Probably the one thing that we haven't really stepped up that aggressively on is putting up our land. We are a very large landholder in Manningham, and we're not proposing to aggressively make our land available for new housing, affordable housing, or particularly lean in with a very significant budget allocation to move the dial on this. So we're mainly relying on the planning system, negotiations for voluntary agreements. We tried it with the Yarra Valley Country Club, and they withdrew their offer the night before the panel hearing started. There's some units at the Christchurch Hospital church over the road here, but again, the rules are quite loose. Is a 5% discount on the retail price officially affordable? In some situations, it is. So we're doing what we can. We're mainly relying on advocacy. We're working within the region. We're going to try and negotiate as best we can. We've got this threshold of applications of 30 units and above. We've got a policy that we can negotiate with. There's been 42 applications or permits issued in the last 10 years of more than 30 units. So when they come forward, and obviously we're going harder when there's a rezone, and asking for a bigger allocation than just an ordinary planning application. So it's a good policy, it's good detail. It is more robust than the previous policy that was voted on in 2010, but it is going to be difficult to move the dial, and we do need to move the dial if you look at the statistics, not just in Manningham, but across Melbourne in particular, right across Melbourne.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Anna Chen, did you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And provision of affordable housing is largely the responsibility of federal and state governments, but I acknowledge that local governments still have a role to play. So therefore, there is a need for a policy that facilitates the provision of affordable housing within the municipality. I look forward to the final draft and report after the targeted consultation that is suitable to the Manningham's unique character. I'm very mindful that Manningham is the municipality without train or train line, and we do not have tertiary campus nor public hospital. So our retail precinct is relatively small compared to other municipalities. So this policy, I look forward to the targeted, after the targeted consultation, is suitable for Manningham. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? Well, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 11, Connected Communities. 11.1, 2023 Annual Grant Program Recommendations. Do I have a mover?
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. And a seconder?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is formally adopting the recommendations of our panel for a $209,000 community grants program in 23-24. So on a budget of roughly 160 million, it's not a large number, but it is still important, and it was great that we had 30 applications for $368,000 in applications. So it's spread across three categories: the community development grants, $127,000, the arts grants, $18,400, and the festival and events grants, $58,000. If you look at the governance of this, the scandals around pork barrelling at the state and federal level, where individual politicians hand-pick marginal seats for grants, has just appalled many people. And the contrast with our system of a panel of 5, no councillors on the panel, 2 officers, 3 independent community members who work on our committees, a fully transparent report that comes to open council, and then a professional report, and then a vote. It's such a contrast, and it is excellent governance. I remember in the bad old days, when I first got elected to Manningham Council, we had 35,000 of ward grants across the three wards where we councillors could get together and just hand out cash to whoever we liked. It was terrible governance. In the City of Geelong, they could do 150 grand each councillor, just every year, just hand it out to whoever they like. So this is a really good program. It's good to see this good, strong demand for it. It's good to see this independently assessed. The governance is excellent, and I'd like to congratulate all the recipients and thank everyone who's been involved in presenting this excellent report tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Mayne. Councillor Lang, did you want to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say how proud we should be, councillors, to be part of the process for our annual grants and the recommendations that have been recommended in the report. This has gone through three stages, as my fellow councillor said, where each application was assessed for assessed to be whether they were eligible. Then they had to go through the applications had to be assessed by officers with expertise in the area. And then the final stage was coming to a community reference panel made up of officers and independent external community members. So we should be very proud of the process and the work that our officers have taken in taking each one of these applications seriously, assessing them for to whether they were eligible, and most importantly, what impact they will have on our community and how they will help us with our community plan and looking after our community and keeping them engaged through community development, through arts and festivals and through events. I'd like to congratulate the 20 applicants and note that 2 of the applicants were referred to the Lord Mayor's Charitable Fund, and those applications that were not successful, I'd still like to thank those community organisations, councillors, for putting in their submission, and thank our officers who will continue to work with them for further and future submissions. We should be proud that our annual community grants project really does prioritise our community's health, looking for our services in disability, in our multicultural services, in gender equity, arts, culture, heritage, sports and recreation. It's a policy and recommendations to be proud of.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have any speakers against? Any other speakers for? I will then put that to a vote. All of those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 11.2, Health and Wellbeing Action Plan 2021 to 2023 Progress Report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Anna Chen.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Health and Wellbeing Action Plan are required to be developed every 2 years. The current action plan includes 27 actions. 25 are well progressed to meet the targets identified in the plan. The remaining 2 are increased healthy eating and reduced injury and harm. That will be carried over to the next action plan 2024-25. I'd just like to share with our councillors the key achievements today includes established a 3-year strategic partnership with Vic Health to amplify the implementation of Manningham Health and Wellbeing Strategy. It is encouraging that Council recently received alcohol harm prevention grant. Established a partnership with Aligned Leisure to improve outcomes for Manningham residents across health, well-being, social, and economic areas through the leisure contracts. Partnership with Swinburne University to deliver the intergenerational social connections and health project. Partnership with Access Health and Community to run infant nutrition program, enhance food literacy, and outreach services provided in Manningham. Working with sporting clubs to make their activities and facilities more welcoming and inclusive. Education and engagement work delivered by the Waste, environment, and emergency management teams on a variety of climate resilience topics. This progress report was presented to the Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee on 7th of June 2023. A review of the existing action plan will be undertaken in September in collaboration with the Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee to meet the legislative requirements of an annual review. So the action plan is attached to the agenda for noting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Chen did a thorough job of that. Thank you.
She certainly did. Do I have anyone that would speak against the motion? Any other speakers for the motion? I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 12, City Services. There are no reports this evening. Item number 13, Experience and Capability. There are no reports this evening as well. Item number 14, Chief Executive Officer. We do have some reports. 14.1, 2023 General Valuation Return. Do I have a mover? That is Councillor Goff.
I move as on the paper.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Thank you. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'll just say this is a bit of a process motion, but I will actually say a couple of words towards it, and that is that I suppose it's about 5 years since we've had the we used to do the valuations here at Manningham, and we used to sell the stuff to the state government. It was reversed around, and sort of the state government tell us it now. And it's really good to know that we actually have to note it. They have to get it to us just a week or so before, a little bit before, we have to do our budget. So we've got plenty of time to organise that in. But anyway, they have been around since, and this is the valuation on the 1st of January this year. We note, it was interesting to note in the report that there has been a downturn in the valuations, and the most drastic downturn is on the site value. So the price of land itself has gone down over 5%, which is a substantial amount. Usually it increases by that sort of amount. The capital improved value, which is the value of the property that's built on it as well as the land itself, has only gone down 1 and a bit percent. But again, it has gone down. Now, why is that important? Well, it really doesn't make much difference to what we charge in rates to people if it's all proportionate across the board. But some people's properties will have gone down more than others, and some people may have increased in time. So that does a minor adjustment to it. If you're talking about the rate in the dollar, which is what we work out to apply to rates, yes, it will increase that by some thousandths or hundredths of a cent, or maybe a few hundredths of a cent, or a fraction of a cent per dollar of the property value in it. But look, that's on the minor level. However, I will have to say that it is important that we take a note of this. And when you start looking at some figures of properties and what they're worth, it's absolutely incredible in Manningham. And if I just go through I'm not really good at mathematics, because when I went to school, when I went to primary school, we actually had pounds, shillings and pence. But even in high school, you didn't deal in anything other than millions, and you thought that was a lot. And then, millions was about the highest you could ever think of. So I'm sure that we go, and let me read some of these numbers, but actually the total rateable property. Now, we have property in Manningham that doesn't get applied rates to, such as schools and places like that they don't pay rates, anything that we have in the state government. And there are a number of other properties and parks and things that we don't get rates for. But if we go to it, the rateable property value, the number of the properties is 53,000 or a bit over, but it's around 50 billion. It's 46, not really. I could round it off that way, but 46,134,000 is the value of all of the rateable properties, and it's from that particular figure and the number of properties that we start working out the rate in the dollar for applying to people's properties. But a couple of other things that I'd just like to mention here is that this figure and the price is used to apply for us to work out the pro forma calculation to work out your rates. And the one last thing I'd like to say is that the people that are having might have a bit of a win, not necessarily on council rates, but perhaps with land tax, because if land value has gone down 5%, some people's land tax costs will have gone down by that amount, but council rates aren't worked out that way. I will say though that when you do get your rate notice, and this isn't the rate notice, this is just talking about the rates, that you do have an ability to appeal your valuation, but it has to be what the valuation is on the 1st of January this year, not what you think the property is worth now if you're going to go and look at that. But people have a chance to appeal what appears on their notices. But that's for a future meeting and a future thing. So with that, that's the case. And note the report and note that we've got it.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just very briefly, it is critical for our budget. It is a state government process, as Councillor Goff mentioned. And just to clarify, when people do object to the value, it's actually not even our responsibility. It goes straight back to the Valuer General. So I'm sure residents will be really pleased about that. I suspect it has something to do with generating sufficient revenues from land tax and other property taxes. But anyway, I'll leave that for others. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting things in here that I think are worth pointing out. So we've only had an increase of 265 rateable properties over the 12-month period to 53,067, which is one of the lowest increases in many years, and is lower than is projected in the 10-year financial plan, where the range is between 392 and 1,302. And one of the reasons for that is because of the North East Link, which has wiped out circa 40% of our industrial properties. So we're down to 77 industrial properties in Manningham, worth only 157 million on a CIV of 66.6 billion. So our industrial base is only 0.23% of our rates revenue, and even commercial is only about 6%. If you compare that, I was having a look at the City of Greater Dandenong's budget tonight, and they are forecasting an increase in their industrial rates revenue by 18.6% to $76 million this year, and a reduction of 12% in their residential rates down to 50.5 million. And they had previously a 280% differential. So they were charging industrial 280% more. And they were so embarrassed by the embarrassment of riches of having this lucky, massive industrial base that they've lowered the differential to 210 this year. So they only have a 19% increase in their industrial rates revenue. So they're only taking their residents for 50.5 million versus 76.2 million. But there is a good side to the story here, that even with that massive advantage that they have and their punitive taxes on their industrial base, Dandenong residents are still paying an average of $1,009 on their median house price of $650,000, which is a higher rate in the dollar than ours. So our average rate is about $1,950 and the average valuation is about 1.2. So I think that does speak to the excellent long-term financial management at Manningham, that even without slugging an industrial base, we, in a sense, in the dollar sense, we have been able to keep our rates low. It's interesting that we don't have any differential, so everyone is paying exactly the same. And in terms of the only people who don't get taxed, it's the state government. So if you look at the carve-out, the non-rateable properties, 926 million is not rateable. 531 million of that is ours. That's only rated so we can pay the fire services levy to the state. In terms of the church, the Mass, I think, is the biggest at it's about 40 odd million, but it's only 395 million of non-rateable privately owned church, charity, etc. So it's relatively low. Most people are paying. The only people who don't pay are the state. It's interesting data. We don't have the advantages of others, but overall, I think it still does paint a very good picture of how we have a simple system, and overall, we are a relatively low tax council and probably the most residential-centric council in the whole of Melbourne.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. 14.2, recreational lands, charges in lieu of rates 2023-24. Do I have a mover?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Stephen Mayne.
I move that the recommendation be adopted with the insertion of the following table at A, which is listed in the report.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anna Chen. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you.
Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? Well, I will put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you. I missed one. Item 14.3, 10-year financial plan 2023-24 to 2032-33. Can I have a mover, please?
The recommendation be adopted, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carly Lang. And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, we have had the 10-year financial plan come to us a few times. We have, it has been through extensive community engagement and councillor feedback. There have been engagement through our websites. There have been requests for it to be seen in hard copy, and there have been submissions. And I would like to congratulate our officers on a very thorough process and also a very detailed report. It is too big for me to read through and go through for you this evening, but some of the key principles I would like to just make prominent again, please. So it's all about financial stability and council improving their financial stability and responding to the challenging financial climate that we find ourselves in. It's all about living within our means so that we don't spend what we don't need to. It's also prioritising funding with our council plan and our priorities, like what we had this evening with our health and wellbeing strategy. It's about financial stability and ensuring that we have a long-term plan to be financial with our ratepayers' money, and that is important for them to know. It is also about prioritising our capital funding and looking at renewing before investing in new or expansion. It's also about funding technology and keeping us protected, as well as investing in innovation. And then it's also looking at our council strategic fund, where we are really doing, we are looking at communities' infrastructure and projects that give us a long-term gain. It's also worth to note that our community reference panel that started at the very start of this process, councillors, who gave us a mission to be financially stable and financially stable for the long term, gave us an aspiration to work towards, and this 10-year financial plan does that. I think we should be very proud of the initiatives inside it, the consultation and the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. going through that, and I'll have to say, I usually don't like saying this, but ditto to what Councillor Lang has said. But just want to pick out a couple of things. Yes, it is, I suppose, in a way, a conservative budget. This is a bit of a crystal ball into what we think it might look like. Is the future going to look like this? Probably not. But as part of any sort of organisation, we need to look ahead and try and anticipate. And then every year, really, this gets revised and we look at it and see how we can actually paint an accurate picture. There are a couple of things. We're living in a very volatile time, and one of the things that, to me, stood out in this particular report was the calculation of CPI. And if I look at it, I think we said, year one, 4%. Well, we're pretty well on par for that for this half of the year. But again, it's the future years on that going back to 2.75. We don't know. But we're trying to work out what we're going to do in the future. So there will be, we have to put in some figures in here. We can't go without it. And it's a way in which we can organise. And again, if we look at the interest rate returns, we've got marked in for this year 4%, but going backwards on any interest that we've got invested. But that's crystal ball stuff. That could be higher. Hopefully one affects the other to some degree, but these are the sort of guesstimates. And it's very important that we do actually go through this process, because it sets the parameters for when we come across the next thing that comes up is the annual budget. And it aligns into here. Now, the annual budget can change these figures, to change what we're actually doing, but it's we've got some idea as an organisation of where we're heading, what sort of resources we've got, and what sort of resources we can get in, and it's a guesstimate. It will never be accurate, it'll never be 100%, because the real world changes very quickly. So with that, I hope we all endorse the 10-year financial... before I do go on, if I've still got a minute or so, thank you very much to all the people.
46 seconds.
We're working on this to get it out and to get it organised, because there's a lot of work involved. And I know there's been quite a lot of councillor time spent on this, but it's the officer time and everything else responding to things to actually get it in to fit into where we're wanting to go into the future. So thank you very much for everybody to get that done in a timely manner, so we're going to be good as far as local government in Victoria are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goffin. Well said. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Do I have any other speakers for the motion? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And again, that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I'll move to item 14.4, the 2023-24 budget adoption and declaration of rates and charges. Do I have a mover? Councillor Conlon.
I'd like to move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Carly Lang. Councillor Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would love to speak to the motion. Thank you. Well, this is as a result of going through public consultation, and also the officers have been very diligent in terms of since we published the draft. There's been significant changes, but the net is probably about zero. For example, we're going to be slugged with another $500,000 in work cover levies this year. We'll be...
Sorry, Councillor Conlon, my apologies. We've lost Laura Main. Councillor Laura Main.
wait.
Yes. Pardon? She may have lost some power to her laptop. She's connecting. Yeah, it seems that her laptop has just gone black, so it seems like she's lost connection. Just excuse me, I'll just... I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pause the meeting, councillors, just so I confirm whether Laura can reconnect. Councillors, I'm just going to adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Chen. A seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? So I'm going to formally adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes, councillors. Thank you everyone for your patience. The meeting is now formally reopened and we do have Councillor Laura Main back on. Councillor Laura Main, can you confirm that you can hear us and see us, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I can see you.
Thank you, and
And
well,
you.
well done on your technological options. So, councillors, I'm going to start item 14.4 again. 2023-24 budget adoption and declaration of rates and charges. Do I have a mover?
Yes, I move that the
Thank you.
recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And a seconder?
I second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Conlon, I think you'd like to talk to the motion.
Sure, I'll start again.
Thank you.
This has been gone through a process. About a month ago, we put out the draft budget, and it was great to see we actually had some submissions, and we actually listened to one of those submissions at least. We listened to them all, but I note that two of the submissions mentioned the state of our major roads, and that is an issue. Unfortunately, it's not our issue. And I agree with the submitters that it would be great if we could get those roads fixed. Unfortunately, that's up to the state government, which has $177 billion of debt, but not enough for us. Anyway, I'll move on because this is an important budget. It highlights our, as previous councillors have mentioned, our financial sustainability, the great work we've done. It reflects previous 10-year plans, I think. I mean, it's good when we have a 10-year plan and you don't have to keep on sort of making excuses for why you didn't quite meet it. This is pretty much in line, although I do note we do have an underlying surplus of only $59,000 this year, which is our lowest for some time. But thankfully our operating surplus is still quite healthy. I do also note the substantial capital works that we're doing within this budget, which is great for our community in terms of providing extra amenity, footpaths, better drains, etc. And I think we should be quite proud of our budget in that respect. In addition, I started mentioning before we got cut off. Since we published the draft, we've lost 500,000 or so in work cover levies that have increased since we actually issued the budget draft, but thankfully our interest income has gone up to offset that, so we're pretty much at a net as what we in terms of what we published in the draft. And I think there's, like I said, there's a lot to be proud of. It's in line with our council plan. We are delivering, and I look forward to seeing the next year unfold. And hopefully, unlike the last few years, we've had to make allowances for COVID, etc. None of that anymore, and things are business as usual, hopefully. So I'd like to thank you for thank the officers for their preparation, for their patience, listening to councillors' concerns during the whole process. This is for the public's benefit. This has been probably a 9-month process of the budget to get to this point. So you really appreciate the CEO's leadership in terms of bringing this to us early, getting our input, and I think it's something we should be proud of, and it will stand up to all public scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Carly Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Andrew Conlon, for your explanation of the next financial year budget. I just want to pick out a few points that this, as Councillor Conlon said, it does provide us with a healthy operating surplus, but there have been pressures on our budget that we have had to take into account and have had to factor into the calculations. I also want to point out that it is about providing a financially stable organisation that can continue to provide high quality services. And if you look in the report, councillors, it does that by putting money aside for our climate action plan. It does that in terms of putting money with our food organics garden organics service. It does that to make a commitment to our operating expenditure. The budget also looks at allocations for our footpaths, drainage and roads. And in response to our roads, we actually have spent money in our last financial year and will continue to do it into our next financial year of resurfacing our local road network, as well as advocating strongly with our state government partners for improvement to our arterial or main roads as well. I also bring to the attention that the Bulleen Templestowe Basketball Club, the Bulleen Boomers, also submitted to the budget, and we've been able to allocate money towards air conditioning at one of our council facilities. I also wanted to say that the financial budget also takes into account the cost of living by ensuring that the rates are not increased any more than the CPI, and that our waste service charge has been brought to a minimum so that it can reduce the cost pressures for our residents, but also meet our waste charges. The other thing I note in the budget is that those who may experience financial hardship can apply to have rebates. So those who receive a Commonwealth Government low-income healthcare card can also do so through the right avenues and through council. So all in all, this is a budget to keep us strong, healthy, quality services and thriving financially. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have any speakers against the motion? Yes, Councillor Main.
Yeah, just like a question. I note that the budget's only got 100,000 allocated for general capital works for our 24 kinders. Just want to hear from the officers as to what their view would be and whether there would be capacity to perhaps increase that to 300,000 as a sort of stay in business increase to the general capital works budget for our 24 kindergartens.
I'll ask our Director of Connected Communities, Lee Robson, to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Main. There would be no adverse resourcing impacts in increasing the capital budget for that program. That would be able to be achieved within current resourcing levels.
Councillor Stephen Main, would you like to speak against the motion or speak to the motion?
No, actually, I would like to move an amendment. I'll read it out. That Council increase the 23-24 General Capital Works budget for Council's 24 kindergartens from 100,000 to 300,000, with a focus on investment in playground infrastructure, consistent with the proposed record investment in 10 public open space playgrounds in 23-24.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Main. Councillor Andrew Conlon, as the mover of the motion, do you accept that amendment?
No, Madam Mayor, I'd prefer to hear a debate about it.
Councillors, do we have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Thomas Lightbody. Councillor Stephen Main, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So look, we've got 90 million in the bank. We're in an incredibly strong financial position. And
Sorry, point of order.
What's your point of order, Councillor?
90 million, perhaps the figure is not correct. And we are considering the 23-24 budget. So I suppose that we should look into the forecast budget for 2023-24. So there is 79 million. And if we take into account of restricted cash, so leave us only 22 million. So for that reason, the information was not correct as quoted by Councillor Main. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. That's
can I respond on that point of order, please? I said we have 90 million in the bank.
Excuse me, so there's no response to a point of order. I've supported that point of order. So, but you can continue with your discussion against your amendment, Councillor.
All right. So, I mean, Councillor Chen is correct that the cash balance of the council is forecast to fall from 90 million currently to 79 million at the end of this year, at the end of the budget. So yes, we agree on that. I guess my position is, councillors, that we are proudly doing a record investment in 10 playground investments in our public open space. So we talked earlier, we were only going to do 6 or 7, and we said as a group, no, let's actually lean in on that. Let's get that up to 10 different ones. And then if you just look at that miserly 100,000 that we've got for kindergarten investment, we have a significant investment going into Tunstall Square, which is majority funded by the state. But in my view, the kindergartens are ignored and neglected. And that's why one of them, I think in Councillor Goff's ward, is actually closing in Swanston Street at the end of the year. We've got falling numbers. There's new infrastructure going in other private centres, and our numbers are falling. And that's because if you look at it, 100,000 for 24 kinders is an embarrassingly small number. So I guess this amendment is just saying, let's increase that to 300,000. We have the financial capacity to do that. Let's be consistent with the investment we're doing in our public playgrounds, and let's support our kinders, because there are other councils that actually spend millions of dollars running kindergarten programs. We are just a landlord, and we're an absent landlord. We don't know what's going on there. We don't invest in them. Some people argue that it's exclusive and we shouldn't be in it at all. Well, why don't we move an amendment to make the budget nothing? But if someone's roof is leaking or they want to put in a new playground, I think the council should be writing to the kinders and saying, we would like to invest in your...
Excuse me, Councillor Goff. What's your point of... Can you describe your...
The point of it is accuracy in what is being said, because council does... what is being intimated there is council don't spend money on kindergartens. We spend quite a bit of money on the maintenance of kindergartens every year, and we actually do a lot of things, and if the roof was leaking or anything, we do spend the money to fix it. So
Thank you, Councillor.
It's an accuracy of what is being said.
I will support that, because we do have a separate maintenance budget, Councillor, for kindergartens.
I guess my point, Mayor, is that there's a line item in the budget which says general capital works, and that's for things like replacing the carpet or redoing some tiles. So it's not just regular maintenance. We're only proposing to spend $100,000 on our entire portfolio of 24 kinders. It's an embarrassingly small figure. We should be spending millions, given that we've got 2.5 billion of assets. And this is a very, very modest proposal, very, very modest. And I think that surely we can step up and do more to support our ageing kindergarten infrastructure. We know the numbers are falling. We know there's a challenge with extra capacity, and this will allow us to step up and do more with a sector that is under stress from private competition and from overall legislation which requires more attendance at kindergartens. And we're a massive player as a landlord, but we just seem to be a disinterested landlord. And that budget of 100,000, I think, is inadequate.
Thank you, Councillor Time. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lightbody, did you want to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thank you. So this amendment is seeking to increase the amount of money within the capital works budget for investment in our kindergartens. Particularly, it's been emphasised that can be spent for play equipment and infrastructure. I don't think we have a large enough pool of funds for upgrading our many council-owned kindergartens equipment, and this motion comes at a time when we're living through a cost of living crisis, and many young families in particular are looking for more affordable options regarding childcare compared to privately owned daycares. The cost of living crisis is also straining the budgets of these young families and will undoubtedly make our community's kinders' fundraising activities much more difficult to run. And given the state's rollout of 3-year-old kinder, we should be making sure that the playgrounds and play equipment in our kinders and our assets are ready and up to date. This fund will help increase the small upgrades available to play spaces within our kinders. And in our upcoming budget, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor Lightbody. Do I have any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Kleinert.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things to clarify, that council over the years have funded substantially a lot of money to our kindergartens. In 2021-22, 880,000, 2022-2023, 600,000, 23, 24, 1.1 approximately, of which only $372,350 was state funding. So not most of that 1.1. Most of the 1.1 is local government. The robustness of this budget process, which I think is a good one, where community, after looking at the draft budget, can submit to the draft budget, of which we did have submissions, of which we did listen, of which we did hear, and we answered. When there is maintenance works to be done, council over the years, in addition to those figures that I've given, spend 200,000 to 300,000 on average on maintenance, as well as a separate inactive capital budget that goes across all facilities for urgent capital upgrades. If there is a need for our local kindergartens, it would be wonderful that they'd come to the budget, submit over the years as those that have, they've been heard, they've been listened to and answered. The precedent that comes from pulling a number out of I don't know where and giving it out makes me feel like we're a council where we're just happy to be Christmas. And where does it stop? It's a really hard decision because ultimately I love kinders. I value our children and the learning that is given to them in kinders and childcares and early learning and the whole raft. If there's a need, they'll come to us, and that's where we take that instead of thinking, wow, it sounds good, it feels good, let's give it out and just let it go as an ad hoc, last minute spend. One reason that Manningham is one of the most sustainable, financially sustainable municipalities is because we have for many years had a 10-year forward budget where we've looked responsibly, where we've always budgeted within our means, knowing and understanding if a rainy day comes, we don't want to say no where there is a need. And hence, that's why I am not in favour of this amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any other speakers for the amendment? Any other speakers against the amendment? Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I stand up to this, it is not anti-kindergarten, it's not anti-anything, it's process. And just because I have an idea brought on by nobody asking for something and me wanting to give something away because I looked at a number and said, oh, gee, that seems a little bit light, not considering the fact that we do spend a lot of other money. In past years, I've been in years where we've had $3-4 million, $5 million spent on our kindergartens. Every time the state government brings in an upgrade of what's required in a facility, we actually spend mega millions of dollars bringing all of our buildings up to that state, up to the standard. And indeed, this is a program run by the Education Department of Victoria, and the Education Department of Victoria is responsible for the kindergartens. They utilise facilities that we don't rent, but we do, $1 or whatever. It's a peppercorn rent, which means they don't pay rent. And we, as a council, look after everything as far as that building is concerned. And indeed, we do spend it. Now, what I find hard is to all of the people out there that have, this hasn't gone through any process. This is just, oh, we just want to hand out for playgrounds or whatever, not with even knowing whatever the needs there are. It's just, wow, ratepayers' hard-earned money, which at the moment is going to be really hard money to pay because we are going into financial crisis. We'll just spend it on things that perhaps people haven't even asked for, because I haven't seen any applications, unless there have been. I haven't seen any applications. I've had no phone calls about the facilities or wanting these particular playgrounds upgraded particularly. It's just an idea, a brain idea that someone wants to, people may want to put through as a whim because they looked at a figure and said, oh, that seems pretty light, not considering that we spend other multi-million dollars worth of money on these facilities in all. And it comes down to a process of what sort of council we want to run, councillors. Do we want to go through? And if you want to say to me, well, if there are these issues and whatever, then there is a midterm budget that does come out, and if there are all of these needs and we hear about them, we may be able to look at satisfying some of those. But to just allocate that at one sort of whim, if everybody came in here on a wedge issue and say, oh, it's kindergartens, no one can speak against kindergartens, I'm not speaking against kindergartens. I'm speaking against a way in which this council operates in expending communities' hard-earned money. And I think there's a lack of respect for that money that we actually supervise.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any other speakers to the amendment? I will put the amendment to a vote. All of those in favour of the amendment. So it's Councillor Stephen Mayne, Councillor Thomas Lightbody and Councillor Deirdre Diamanti. All those against. Oh, and Councillor Laura Mayne, Thomas Lightbody. I'm going to say that again. Councillor Stephen Mayne, Councillor Thomas Lightbody, Councillor Deirdre Diamanti and Councillor Laura Mayne. All those against the amendment, Councillor Carly Lang, Councillor Michelle Kleinert, Councillor Anna Chen, Councillor Andrew Conlon and Councillor Jeff Goff. So I will now move to the substantive motion. Do I have any other speakers to the substantive motion? Councillor Lightbody.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. In crafting this budget, us as councillors and the officers have been very conscious of the current economic environment that makes life tough for our community. And council operates in a capped environment, noting that this year's recommendation from the Essential Services Commission to the Minister for Local Government was to cap rates at 4% this year. The Minister ultimately made the decision to reduce the cap to 3.5%, well below the actual costs increases to maintain services and our infrastructure. It's disappointing to note that in contrast, many state government charges affecting our community have increased well beyond 3.5%. And as noted in a recent media statement by Burundara Council, the state government's waste charge, which all councils are required to collect and pass back to the state government, increased by 60.7% per tonne and 18.9% per tonne over the respective last 2 years, whilst penalty units for fines collected by the state government have actually increased by 10% over the last 2 years. In addition to this, many in the community would also be unaware that the state government has been shifting costs and responsibilities to our local communities for many years by underfunding services such as our libraries and our maternal and child health services. And in Manningham, this is estimated to be in the order of $12.8 million in this budget alone. So, whilst Council is sensitive to the challenges our community is facing in adopting this responsible budget, we do call on other levels of government to consider their increasing costs to community, given they collect 96% of our taxes. And I will just highlight some of these net cost shifts to Council. These include just over $1 million for electrical line clearances, $4.7 million for our libraries, $200,000 for fire hydrant maintenance, $330,000 for school crossing supervision, almost $300,000 for maintenance that we're doing on Vic Road's arterial roadside maintenance, so looking at grass cutting on some of our major arterial roads. And of course, the increasing landfill levy cost, which comes into $1.8 million. This all works out to be about 8.4% of Council's underlying income, but over 10% of the income we receive from rates is going to services that used to be funded by the state government. But I would like to thank the officers for putting this budget together. And I spoke a lot on this when we put out the draft budget last year, but there's a lot of good things in here, including what's been mentioned by Councillor Lang, including funding for our climate action plan, as well as our circular economy plan and our FOGO services, which are starting in 3 days, I believe. So I'd really like to thank the officers for all the work they put in and all the time they've spent with us working through this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and well said. Do I have any other speakers to the motion?
I'd like to propose one more amendment.
Yes, Councillor, can you read out the proposed amendment?
That Council expand the 23-24 Capital Works budget by $300,000 for investment in perimeter netting at cricket and football ovals, with a focus on safety, which includes bringing forward projects currently scheduled to commence in 24, 25 and beyond.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Andrew Conlon, back to you. Do you accept the amendment?
No, I'd like to hear the debate. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Lightbody. Councillor Stephen Mayne, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So I'll pick up on some of the themes in the previous debate. So importantly, this is not trying to hand pick a particular project in a particular ward at a particular ground. It is an overall funding envelope for all netting. We can't argue that this is a state government responsibility or this is someone else's. We're responsible for the netting. We do it. Why are only 2 of the 4 goals done at Templestowe Reserve? Why are none of the 4 goals done at Bulleen Park? I mean, that should have been done 26 years ago. I was driving past Bulleen Park the other day. My car got hit by a football. So I think that if you drive around, we've still done less than half overall of the netting behind the goals. We've made some progress. Last year we moved an amendment for a $750,000 bring forward of netting and lighting. The majority of that went into lighting. There's still a large number of netting projects to be done, and this is just creating a funding envelope for that. Councillors, we haven't done a major project since Mullum Stadium opened 6.5 years ago. That's why our cash is continuing to rise, and it's now up to, at the moment, around $90 million. We've underspent our capital works budget by about $10 million in each of the last 2 years. It's quite difficult to deliver a $58 or a $54 million project. This is something which is small and deliverable. It won't be delayed by COVID. It's an easy little bolt-on, and then we'll have consistency across the clubs, whereas a standard practice, we deliver netting behind the goals so that people can practice their goal kicking and it can be safe and windows are not getting smashed, cars are not getting hit. We started doing this last year, councillors. The investment has flowed, but there are some ovals where it still hasn't been done, and this is a very modest funding envelope. As councillors, we are allowed to lean in and tweak the budget in a minor way. We don't have to always follow the Office of View. We don't have to be super conservative and say no to funding requests because 90 million in the bank is not enough, and we want to be like Whitehorse, which has got 220 million. So we're behind the standard in this area. We've done well. We've made some progress. We can't buck past to the state government or someone else. This is 100% our responsibility. And if we get this 300,000, it will get this issue done, and we won't have to keep debating it year after year.
Thank you, Councillor. I do think it's important to note that we have actually done Petty's Reserve that was 10 million since we did Mullum. We don't need a debate over whether 10 million is major or minor. Councillor Lightbody, did you want to speak to the amendment?
Yes, just briefly. I think it's important to note that this budget amendment is about increasing a fund to bring forward some projects that were scheduled for 24-25 and in years ahead, and that it's sort of a follow-on from a budget amendment that passed at last year's budget requesting additional funding for lighting and net installations. And I believe this amendment in the subsequent year has risen because while there was lots of investment in some of our lighting projects, it's some of our opinions that not enough safety net installations were installed at our ovals. So that's why I'm seconding this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any speakers against this motion? Councillor Kleinert.
Again, I think it's a great idea, as protective netting is an effective way to increase functionality of playing areas and spaces, improve player and spectator safety. I agree with all that. Reduce the time of catching balls, lost balls, potential of damage to vehicles or people's heads and property. It is anticipated that by June 30, 7 fields will be done currently because we've got policies in place, we've got systems, we've got rating systems, including Doncaster Reserve, protecting the playground, will be done, Ryshix Reserve, behind the goals. There'll be Shrams, both ovals at Shrams, Wilson Reserve, Domini Reserve, Coleman Park, and Warrandyte Reserve, both ovals. 7 sites, $300 and some thousand plus. And that's not all, there's more being done. There is obviously systems and processes in place that we are getting this done. My question is, and it's rhetorical in the sense of, have we had a submission from a club that said how important it is that they go ahead of another club to have the netting done? If things could be done all in this financial year, we would. We wouldn't be sitting here arguing it. But once we open the Pandora's box, it becomes really hard. Where do we say no? When we serve over 100 services across local government, dealing with our residents from cradle to grave, and we're picking out and plucking out something that feels good, that sounds great, and making it happen to tomorrow. I think we have, as a council, have been great in the way that we have sought through the CEO to bring about efficiencies, get things happening. It's been very difficult tracking back after COVID with supply, with contractors, and I think we're doing really well. I think what we're producing and delivering on is great. Again, if there was submissions that would come, a sporting club that would say this is why, yada, 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 and they'd put their case to, I think we'd look at it as an individual basis. But my concern is, again, plucking something out after it's gone out for public consultation and saying, let's do this, let's do that, and making it feel like nothing's being done. That's why I'm saying no, I don't agree with this motion. I value our sporting clubs. I value all that they bring to the community. But I do also value the equity of having policies in place, great relations with our local clubs, that if there is a need that
Thank you,
is beyond
Councillor.
somewhere else,
Time.
they'll come to us directly.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any speakers for the amendment? Yes, Councillor Conlon.
Just to clarify, Councillor Main, you mentioned that it includes bringing forward projects currently scheduled to commence 24-25. What's the budget for those projects in the forecast? Or perhaps just
I can't answer that off the top of my head. I'm not sure we can. We might have to take that on notice.
I'll ask.
Just give it a moment.
I'll ask our Director of City Services if Rochelle Quattrocchi, if she can answer that question. So can you just repeat the question, Councillor Conlon?
Yes, I'm just interested. The motion mentions bringing forward projects currently scheduled to commence 24 and 25 and beyond, which I assume has been budgeted in. So is it like 300,000? Is it we just bring something 300,000 forward, or we bring 50,000 forward, or what are we doing? And another question is just, this is an accounting question, but is this capital works, or is this so minor it doesn't come under capital works, and does it therefore affect our underlying surplus if we approve this adjustment? Because as I mentioned, I think we have a $59,000 underlying surplus, so I would hate headlines to say that netting tips us into the red.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. So for the first question, I'll ask Rochelle Quattrocchi, and perhaps for the second question, I'll ask John to respond.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Conlon. There's probably a couple of things in consideration in the conversation with the clubs as well around this, because bringing something forward and the team as well in sport and recreation about some other works that are happening that are coinciding with these planned works that are in the forward program. But in answering your question and giving you a figure of such, you're probably looking at about 300,000 in that forward year across a couple of projects that are currently in there. But over the next 10 years, there's projects spread across, right across the program for netting and lighting.
Can I ask for clarification?
Yes.
So is that 300,000?
Can you use your mic, please, Councillor?
So is the 300,000 that you mentioned, is that specifically for netting? And is that what, do you think that's what's being requested in the motion?
I'm just looking at the program in front of me. So we've got a 10-year program, Councillor. So we would need to take that on notice to specify which projects in particular. But each project is quite a considerable amount. So we'd need to have a look at that and what we can bring forward from the future year. But if you're looking at 25, 26 specifically, we've actually got about 300,000 that's forecasted for that particular year.
For sports netting.
For sports netting.
John Gorse, can you please respond to the second part of the question? Do you need to hear it again? Or
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, yes, in terms of the nature of the expenditure on netting, that would be capital works, given that they would have a life of more than 1 year, and the cost of each net would be a reasonably significant amount of money. So therefore, it would be deemed to be capital in nature and would be an asset.
So just to clarify, it won't affect the underlying surplus figure?
No, it won't, no.
thank you, John. John, our Chief Financial Officer. Councillor Conlon, did you want to speak to the motion after those questions?
No, I think I'm happy to listen to others at the moment.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers? Because we're still speakers for the motion. Any speakers against, the amendment? Any speakers against the amendment? Councillor Goff?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, we're coming to a situation where an agenda is being pushed forward that has gone through a lot of due consideration. We've taken on board an issue and want things built today because it can come through in an amendment. This is, look, I'm not saying that nets aren't important, but what I'm saying is that we need to actually, we've come to some decision through our 10-year financial plan and what we're going to put out into future budgets, into an order in which we're doing things, and all of a sudden, I haven't heard the people coming to me asking for it, but all of a sudden we're getting, we've got to push this one all through. Well, there'd be a lot of other groups and a lot of other people in our community who'd like their project pushed through. And indeed, one of the things, the biggest issue that Manningham has, the most outstanding issue that is so unresolved in this council is the quality of its drainage. It is such a poor standard of drainage throughout most of our municipality, and in the order of hundreds of millions of dollars to actually get to today's standard. And we want to know how we can actually fund and improve that. And it's by being responsible with our budgets and spending it in those areas. In fact, that's reached such a big level that it's mind-boggling when you start thinking about what is required to bring our drains up to standard.
Excuse me, Councillor, I've got a point of order.
Yes.
It's a misleading statement because we're still finalising the assessment of our drainage to work out the dollar value required to bring them up to standard.
Thank you. So in 1997, when I first joined council, the amount of money to upgrade our drains was $90 million. And I'm sure it's gone up since then. So indeed, it is one of our greatest issues. And this is what we're doing here at the council. For the whim of whatever, we can put it through, but what does that send out? We just get other things pushed through, and it's not the way in which we do it. I like the responsible method. We've got things worked out. We're being just to all the other people as well. We do go through processes. Our organisation has gone through processes, and not one person put a submission in for extra this time, and not one person has approached me, and I don't know about the other councillors. But if I went around asking clubs what they wanted, they would give me a long list of things that they would want, and then, really, it's just a way in which we go about it, and I hope this council, we spent a long time getting this budget together, and yes, there is some surplus in that, but that can be eaten up very, very quickly. And aren't we lucky we're not in debt? Because if we were in debt, we'd be spending money on interest.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any other speakers to the amendment? I am going to put that. Councillor Lang?
Could I please speak against the amendment, Madam Mayor?
if you call for any other speakers against.
You can speak, councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to reassure our community and our sports clubs that we are all about safety, that we are all about netting, we are all about lighting, we are all about having safe use of our reserves for maximum usage. I also want to note that we have a process of accountability, and that is where, as a municipal-wide, we look at all our reserves, we look at the needs within the reserves, we look at the yearly budget which we have, and we prioritise all our reserves under the same criteria, and then they come in order. We have just heard through question time, councillors, that our reserves and their netting projects are underway, and they're also forecasted before, anticipated to be 7 of them that were read by Councillor Kleinert, to be completed by the 30th of June. And then in the new financial year, we have another 8, Deep Creek Reserve, Donvale Reserve, Serpils Reserve, Templestowe Reserve, Timber Reserve, Zerby's Reserve, Stinton's Reserve, Koonung Park, all in line with other works that are happening in that area for financial efficiencies and less disruption to our community for their use. Councillors, we're very wise, and what we have in front of us is good financial planning to provide our community with safe reserves in the most effective, less disruptive way possible, with the same criteria and fairness. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I'm going to put this amendment to the vote. All those in favour of this amendment? So Councillor Stephen Mayne, Councillor Thomas Lightbody, Councillor Deirdre Diamanti. All those against? Councillor Carly Lang, Councillor Michelle Kleinert, Councillor Jeff Goff, Councillor Andrew Conlon, Councillor Anna Chen and Councillor Laura Mayne. So that amendment is not carried. I am going to go back to our substantive motion, and I am going to put that to a vote. You have already spoken to the motion.
No, I've just moved to amendments. I haven't spoken.
Oh.
So I'd like to speak in favour of the budget.
Can we just... Thomas, yeah.
So look, I'd like to speak in favour of the budget. I do think it is healthy that we actually have some public ventilation of the broader financial strength issues. I do remember when first getting elected 2.5 years ago that the first draft of the 10-year financial plan showed that our cash balance was going to rise up to 150 million. So it was rising. So we, as a group of councillors, we decided to increase the capital works budget by about 10 million a year in the long term. Unfortunately, with COVID and everything else, and probably the lack of really, really big projects, it's been difficult to deliver that. And so I have been looking for small, bolt-on, deliverable projects that will amp up the capital, because I do think that the current cash balance of 90 million is too conservative. So there are some areas where there hasn't been any public ventilation, where we do underspend compared to others. We've had some private discussions. Banyule spends $1 million helping their traders each year. We don't spend anything. So Boroondara spends 100,000 a year, gives 100,000 to each community house. We're less than half that, or round about half that. So I guess my thesis is that we have the financial strength to actually step things up. For instance, this year, it's not really mentioned in the budget, but we're exiting aged care on October 31. 90 staff will be probably taking redundancy. It's going to free up millions. So that hasn't been mentioned. We hear about work cover. Our interest payments are soaring. 12 interest rate rises in a row. We're going to have 3.2 million.
Councillor, point of order. Sorry, councillor. I know there's been a few points of order, but I think that's a misleading statement around freeing up millions, because there's a whole process to go through in terms of redundancy payments.
Well, I said freeing up millions in an operating sense. So we're exiting aged care.
And
90 staff are leaving.
And again, it's misleading because we are continuing with our healthy ageing unit where we're going to reallocate the budget.
Yeah, the federal outsourcing is what I'm talking about. So we're not entirely getting out of aged care.
Councillor, I've called a point of order as the mayor. please continue with your comments.
All right. There are some good things, there's many good things in the budget. We have stepped up the footpath investment. There is mention of the Aquarena outdoor pool as a coming major project that we are proposing to do. Our strong position, for instance, with the waste charges, we've renamed our waste reserve. We're now calling it the Circular Economy Reserve, and it will only fall from 9.45 million to 8.2 million in that reserve at the end of this year, even after all the heavy investment in FOGO. So we've got, I think it's 6 million in our open space reserve. So there's talk about how little unrestricted cash we have, but there's actually quite a few reserves that we have there where we do have discretion to invest in waste in open space. So we do have a very strong financial position. I personally, I think that we can't keep on putting up the rates by the maximum.
Thank you, Councillor.
Time's up? All right. But do vote in favour of the budget.
Thank you, Councillor. I would like to put this now to a vote. All those in favour of this motion, and that's unanimously carried. Thank you, councillors, also for a very respectful debate on those amendments. You still with us, Councillor Laura Mayne?
Yeah.
Good. Item number 14.5, Audit and Risk Committee Independent Member Reappointment. Do I have a mover?
I move that the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Do I have a seconder?
Oh, yes, okay, I'll second that. Laura, I didn't see you up there, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Laura Mayne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just that Andrew Dix has been a great member and chair. He provides robust advice to management, is very outcomes focused, and I'm looking forward to working with him more in the future, hopefully. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laura Mayne. Councillor Goff, would you like to speak to the amendment?
No.
Do I have any speakers against? Any other speakers for? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 14.6, Appointment of Authorised Officer, Planning and Environment Act 1987. Do I have a mover? Councillor Michelle Kleinert.
That the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Andrew Conlon. Thank you. Councillor Kleinert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Nothing to add, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Conlon. Any other speakers to the motion? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14.7, informal meetings of councillors. Do I have a mover?
I move that the recommendation be adopted, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carly Lang. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kleinert. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kleinert. Do I have any speakers against? Any other speakers? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 14.8, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover? Councillor Anna Chen.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goff. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Goff? No. I am just going to put that to a vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item number 15, urgent business, and there are no items of urgent business. Item number 16, councillor reports and question time. So I would like to make a very brief report or statement that I'm really looking forward to the launch of FOGO in 3 days, as we've already heard in this meeting. I would like our Director of City Services to just comment on how launch ready are we, Rochelle?
110%, Mayor. It's a very exciting time for Manningham, and there's been a lot of planning that's gone into this over the last 12 months. We have held over 60 information sessions with our community. Our community liaison officers have attended markets, shopping centres across Manningham, and have also presented to a range of diverse community groups. It's one of our biggest and most far-reaching education campaigns that we've ever run here at Manningham. Information has been available on a number of platforms, and including in different languages for our multicultural community. And you're not alone in the implementation of this program. We're there with you to assist you all the way. It's a great new service and it starts this week on the 1st of July, so this Saturday, and we'll be there to walk you through it if you need. So just don't hesitate to contact our officers. There is also a lot of information, as I mentioned, available. You can make a difference, and everybody can, in our residents in Manningham, to contributing to our goal for zero emissions by 2028. And the food waste, by putting your food waste into your existing green bins and putting it in the correct bins, you are contributing to reducing the amount of landfill and also recycling that food waste to compost that we can use in the gardens within here in Manningham. So it's exciting times, Mayor. Bring on FOGO.
Thank you, Rochelle. And can I please congratulate the entire waste team, because it has been an extraordinary change management effort. Thank you. Councillors, would anyone like to provide a report or raise a question? Councillor Lightbody.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Last council meeting I asked about our planning data in reference to application approvals, rejections, VCAT subsequent approvals and the successful affordable housing negotiations. So as a short recap, there's growing concern that local communities and council are going to lose control and influence in planning matters. The government is proposing changes to the planning system that we've not seen yet, but it's rumoured to include significant removal of local government from the planning process. And they're doing this in the context of tying us to a lack of housing supply and the housing affordability crisis. So I'm hoping that progress has been made on finding what our data is, and I'm sure that our data will clearly highlight that this is definitely not the case, that we do approve the vast majority of applications that do come to us. And it should also probably highlight that while we do try to negotiate for affordable housing, because we're not able to make it a compulsory requirement, we're actually being hindered in our ability to have a positive impact on the affordable housing crisis. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will ask Duncan Turner, Director of City Planning, to provide an update for Councillor Lightbody, please.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Lightbody, for the question. Just to recap, we did seek and receive advice from the MAV back in late April, and they advised that they'd met and received reassurance from the Minister for Planning that no decisions on planning reform program beyond existing initiatives had been made by the government, and that local government would be part of the conversation. That the government is committed to continuing to manage growth, including infill development, and the Minister is open to engaging with councils and the MAV. In post the meeting in May, we had anticipated a request from the MAB for supporting material to support a sector-wide position on the matter. That request hasn't been made as yet. We have received advice late last week that the intention is for the MAV to assemble a working group of council, CEOs and directors to form a steering process towards developing a sector-wide position on planning reform. And this would include engagement with elected representatives, including through a mayoral roundtable. And as part of that, councils will then be requested to provide data and evidence to assist in that sector-wide position. The advice is that we should be expecting that formal request or outline of that process in the next fortnight. Notwithstanding that, our intention is to provide a report to council in July as an update, and the intention would be to outline what we know about the planning reform agenda that is already on the table, but also to outline council's role and performance in fulfilling our planning responsibilities, and they are both in the strategic planning sense and then also the statutory planning sense, as Councillor Lightbody has touched on. And probably just to touch on some highlights of that, Manningham is a clear and effective policy around managing growth, and there is data available to us that would support that position, and we'll present that data to you. And I think we're able to demonstrate that from a statutory planning point of view, our performance is reasonable. There's extremely, less than 1% of matters are refused. We're efficient in terms of timelines, and also supported by the community and applicants and VCAT, with very, very low appeal numbers proceeding to VCAT. Look forward to presenting some of that data to Council in July. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. Thank you, Councillor. Any other reports or questions? Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I have two reports. My first report was about Craig Manoli. I attended the memorial service for Craig Manoli on 6th of June this year. Craig was the co-founder of Phoenix Theatre Company and has been actively involved in performing arts within Manningham for more than 25 years. I attended Craig's last production of Calendar Girls at the Doncaster Playhouse in April this year and thoroughly enjoyed it. The production made the whole audience laugh, made us think, and made us cry. Craig's passing is a loss to the industry and leaves a void in so many lives. And I send my condolences to Craig's family. My second report is a happy one, and it's about Barry Ain, who is a member of our Youth Advisory Committee. Barry is a Year 12 student at the Doncaster Secondary College and has won the International Student Program for the category of Student Leadership from the Department of Education and Training. Each year in Victoria, one international student from Year 11 and one from Year 12 receives this award. This year's award was acknowledged for Barry's contribution as a Year 11 student in 2022. Her contribution to the Youth Advisory Committee formed a part of her application for this award. We are pleased that she has won. The reward has been successful, and a great congratulations to Barry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Warrandyte Cricket Club would like to appreciate the Manningham community and also the outstanding support received from Manningham Council through the leadership of Madam Mayor, CEO, and officers Jude and Ben for their expertise and for their support. The Warrandyte Cricket Club have initiated a GoFundMe page which has raised over $45,000 for local victims. The club has also received financial support from Warrandyte Rotary, Warrandyte Lions Club, Bendigo Bank Warrandyte, the Grand Hotel, Warrandyte RSL, Warrandyte Football Club, Donvale Football Club, Warrandyte Market and Quinton's IGA. The cricket club is now ensuring that each person receives mental health support. The Warrandyte Football Club held a minute of silence recently, joined by the Oakleigh District senior team. In this time, the President Owen Humphreys and Life member Peter Hookey would like to thank the community for their donations, where they raised $2,000 in the gate fees as well as the raffle. The Warrandyte RSL put together their event tickets, their bar proceedings, and also their raffle donations for the Warrandyte Cricket Club and raised $6,500 to support our local victims. The statement here is that we are all here to support our community as a whole, and Manningham Council has been a part of that and is thanked by the clubs. We are beyond honoured and proud to be a part of this incredible community and local government council. Thank you.
Thank you, Carly, and well said. And I'd like to extend my thanks to the entire team involved in supporting that community. Any other reports or questions? Councillor Stephen Mayne.
Mayor, so as you see, I'm quite experienced at putting up motions that are unsuccessful, so I have great delight in reporting that the absolutely hard-hitting motion on gambling that this council unanimously supported to take to the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly in Canberra a couple of weeks ago was supported by 71% of voting delegates. I was shocked. I was expecting that it would be defeated. It was incredibly hard-hitting, banning all advertising on gambling, fully cashless, abolishing the Northern Territory's ability to give sports bet licences, new federal regulator, big pokies buyback, even having you go at the ALP and the Catholic Church effectively for being in the pokies business. And I thought many of these things would offend voting delegates. But with the support of Councillor Lightbody on the WhatsApp with his friends and just general lobbying, it was supported, and I got a lot of really good feedback from other delegates there. So I'd also like to say that Councillor Lightbody's motion on sustainable transport sailed through without any opposition. So only about 15 of the 130 motions got debated. As soon as someone speaks against, you have a sense of foreboding. The captured New South Wales regional clubs got up and had a go. One Pokies Club councillor who's on a pokies club that has 10 million of revenues, he got up as a councillor, didn't declare his conflict and spoke against it. Oh, what wonderful things the pokies clubs do. Anyway, that didn't work, and the federal sector of local government has passed the strongest ever anti-gambling motion. It shows the sentiment of that industry on the nose. We're the world's biggest spenders at 25 billion. So I just wanted to report back and thank the colleagues very much for supporting the idea that we go up with a hard motion. And celebrate the surprise of it actually getting up.
Thank you, Councillor, and congratulations. Any other reports or questions, councillors? Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And my question is probably one that I did a few years ago too. But the deterioration, I'm just wondering if we've got a report on the main roads in Manningham and whether we can actually get a report to actually look at the state of roads operated by the state government, by Vic Roads in Manningham. I travel around, I travel on Thompson's Road where I know that part is, there's potholes, things coming up, surfaces bad. Doncaster Road, there are bad surfaces. Williamson's Road, there are some bad surfaces, some shocking surfaces on Manningham Road. And all around Templestowe Road, there are lots of potholes, lots of issues on our roads, and it is getting worse. Notwithstanding that, the graffiti that's around roadways on the main roads and signs, graffiti on signs, and especially the Eastern Freeway, which is one of the major thoroughfares. And if you go in towards I suppose it's, what is it, Richmond there, or is it Fairfield? Past the Fairfield Way there, 2 kilometres out of the of getting into the city there. The road has potholes, drains, and the roads are in a state of repair that if they're not actually maintained, water will penetrate and the road will be far worse into the future. And I think there's a drop in standard of what's occurring by Vic Roads, be it maintenance, it is maintenance of all aspects of Vic Road roads as you drive around Victoria. And I'm just wondering if we could ask if a report can be get up to the state of the roads and where we could start a campaign and write to the state government and write to them to actually spend the money where it needs to be spent, and that is on the maintenance of the roads that we've got already. Because indeed, I think, and I don't think I'm the only one,
Thank you, Councillor Tyne.
It's bad.
We've noted that, the CEO's noted that action for that report.
Thank you.
Councillor Conlon.
Yes, thank you. I guess my question is regarding, I guess maybe not a question, I'm really interested in exploring our unutilised land around Manningham that we own in light of the report we had about affordable housing. I think that is just the tip of the iceberg. I think there are so many families who wouldn't qualify for affordable housing who just can't live here because there is not enough rental stock. And I'm interested in exploring the idea of understanding, by first understanding what properties we have that are we own that have the potential to be developed into like townhouses, I guess. I'll put it straight out like that. Like, because I think that is where families want to live. They want to live in a townhouse.
The Green Wedge.
Yeah, not in the Green Wedge. All our land. Don't take words out of my mouth, Councillor Goff. Or put words into them. So I'm interested in a report that identifies all the possible land that we have, and then and what are the steps forward from there in terms of increasing the rental stock within Manningham and making it it should be financially viable, obviously, for us to do that. And I think now is an opportune time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll ask our CEO to respond.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor. We're more than happy to, perhaps in the next time we come to talk to Council about the strategic property portfolio, to give you an update on where we're at with and what some of those opportunities might be for Council's consideration.
Councillor Laura Main, did you have a question or a report? No? Councillor Kleinert? No? Okay. Thank you, councillors. It's always a very interesting section of the council meeting. I will now go to item number 17, confidential reports, and there are no confidential reports this evening, which brings me to closing the meeting. Thank you, everyone.